Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Orlando Magic Pod Squad. Great to have you with us. Dante Marchitelli, Jeff Turner, David Steele, Jake Chapman. It's all we could fit in here. We would put more in here if we could.
Skinny.
That's right. Good thing everybody fits. And Jeff Weltman, Magic President of Basketball Operations, kind enough to join us. And Jeff, it's always great to talk to you, kick off another season of Magic Basketball. For you, this will be number 8 here in Orlando.
Wow,
right?
How about
Think
that?
about that.
Time flies, Dante.
What goes through your mind when you hear that, season 8?
I'm getting old, man.
No.
No, it's been a great run here, man. I've had a great, experience, with the organization, with the city. Our families loved it, and we've been through a lot of iterations of the team. First getting here, kind of getting the lay of the land, assessing what it was that we had, kind of trying to fit that together and take it as far as we could. Obviously recalibrating and going in another direction, and haven't been more excited than I am as we sit here today going into season 8 for me.
For us, we get excited. This is start of another season. We get excited. David Steele starts answering our calls again. Come on. Because the games are coming. What are your emotions as you get ready for it? Do you get as excited as you did when you started? What do you think as we start training camp?
Yeah, I'm excited that David's answering our calls. Yeah.
You too, right?
It is an exciting time. No, hey, this time of year is always exciting. But I will say it's exciting for every team.
Sure.
All of the work that you put in over the summer, all the planning. I think for us, specifically, because we've been kind of stair-stepping, and we're at a place now where it's going to get harder to do that, And we're a team that, unlike a lot of the teams that we're competing with, and we make no mistake, like that's who we're competing with, we have not yet kind of pushed our chips in, So we're still, by and large, constituted by young players who are still in the process of growing and understanding how they affect winning with one another. Obviously, we're excited about the additions this year. But yeah, I think the whole organization, I think you can feel it when you walk into the building, has a great sense of excitement for the season ahead.
As you look at where the team is right now, you mentioned that there's been a process, that you've been through some evaluation periods. Do you feel like you're more now beyond the evaluation period, or is there still a certain amount of evaluation that's going on before you move to that next step?
Honestly, David, in our jobs, I feel like you never outgrow the evaluation period. It's just the lens through which we have to see the whole world. I will say that it's tough. The league makes it. It's tough for all of us in the NBA, and it's really tough for the players because the timetables in the NBA are set by contract lengths. And so when we always say there's a lot of hard decisions coming at us, that's because, contracts have lived their lives, and when they get to the end of their lives, decisions must be made. And the first wave of those decisions come from players who are just starting to scratch the surface, So all we try to do is give the players as much space and nourishment and what I guess is called player development as possible to have them grow into the league the right way, understand what the league values, what our team values, and give them a chance to show who they can be. But the earlier you have to make these decisions, the more fuzzy the probably byproducts are going to be. And so this is something that the whole league is up against, and especially if you're a young team and you're building through the draft and through young players, we believe in our young guys. We haven't really recruited over them. We haven't done a lot of, as I said earlier, kind of pushing our chips into the middle of the table sort of deals. So right now we've been able to stair step because they've been able to stair step. And when you win 47 games, you're eating up a lot, more difficult space as you go forward. So, we're excited about the season. We never stop evaluating, and this is a tough league, and they know that. The players know that, and they know that what we're evaluating is who drives winning. So, there's a lot to kind of factor into the whole wash of what constitutes an NBA team, and but at the end of the day, the players that affect winning, the players that make each other better, that make it easier to play with one another, those are the guys that we gravitate towards.
And Franz, you've already taken care of from the 21 draft contractually. Jalen Suggs, the next name on that 21 list. How do you expect for that to play out, that negotiation?
I mean, I don't have any expectations. I know that Jalen is like an extremely important, part of what we're doing here. He's an exceptional young talent, and he's an exceptional young man. And, we've had conversations with his representatives, and we'll just see where that goes. Obviously, I'm not going to really kind of open the door to those discussions, other than to say that, Jalen is a really vital, part of our team, and he's been a big part of our success.
Jeff, it's interesting when we hear you talk. You've used words like it's hard, it's tough. You're talking about contracts and making it all go together, the step-by-step process. I think as fans, people listening, for us, I consider myself a fan. It's what are we doing this year? But you can't do that, can you? Talk about the process of how far out from a timeline you're looking at when you're building this thing.
All the way out. I can't see that far. I feel that, we never want to lose sight of this season. We want to be better than last year. We want to compete. We want to win a championship. We also have to understand that the things that have driven us to this point have been the growth of our young players. And we have to invest ourselves as deeply as possible to continue that process, because that is what's going to attract other players. There's a reason that a guy like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope wanted to be here, because he sees the way our young guys are developing, the way our team is trending. And I do believe that there are a lot of players around the league that notice that see what we're doing here. And we have to continue that. So, with the nature of the CBA and the financial compression that's going to really hit the whole league at some point, the more you kind of build through the draft and reinvest in your own players, like the tighter you get financially, the tougher those decisions get made. But what really makes them difficult, like I said, is we have to make them so early. These guys are so young, and the earlier you have to make them, the more room there is for, the less accurate probably your data collection can be, if I can put it that way. And so, we need to give these guys a chance to show who they are, and as people, as workers, as teammates, in every way. So to answer your question, we look all the way ahead because our goal is to win a championship. I'd love to win one this year, and if we see that we're trending that way, we'll do everything we can. But that being said, I feel that this is the position that we're in right now is we are competing at the highest level. We do want to get better and compete for a title right now, but we also, as I've said before, want to follow our North Star, and we won't deviate from that, which is, we have a lot of young players on this roster who we feel have a lot of potential and a lot of growth in them, and we are obligated to them to get them as far as we can, and give them all the nourishment that we can organizationally. And so it's trying to do two things, and that's where I get to. It gets a little tricky at times. It's not. I always say the NBA seldom presents you with an obvious choice, but this is what we're trying to do.
Jeff, they say progress isn't linear. I say that a lot. I think I probably heard it from you.
Our analytics guys say that a lot.
Yep. Unless you're Jamal Mosley and you're talking about win totals, right?
There you go.
But aside from that, like expectations and plus 12, plus 13, just for you man-to-man to watch Coach Mosley get some of that recognition, Coach of the Year votes, the select team, how gratifying has that been for you?
I think it's terrific. And I think that's emblematic of our organization. That's why I love it so much because, Coach deserves it. I mean, he's so invested. He's so invested in the team. He's so the way that we think ahead, years and years, and how does our team unfold? He's thinking that way about each of our guys every single day. And there's just no substitute for that. It's just authentic. It's genuine, and it's the old expression. But our guys would run through a wall for him. They know how much he cares, and he's good. He's a really good coach. And I think that, like our team, if you think about it, he came here 3 years ago, and you talk about the growth. He was a rookie. So, he's getting better and better himself, and so I couldn't, ask for anything more to have as a partner to go through this, process with, and to watch him, the way that he treats people, the way that he invests in people, the way that he gives of his own time. It's so gratifying. And again, Jake, it speaks to the way that we work here. It speaks to who we are and who we want to know, who we want our players to know this is what we're about, and I believe that they do.
It's such a good question. It's kind of why we replaced him with George. It's kind of why we made that substitution. Sorry, George.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, George. That's going to come back to bite me.
Would have been something about the Mets or something.
Would have been a mess. Take us through this summer. You set yourself up so nicely with salary cap flexibility, the ability to add a Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who you mentioned earlier. We know the numbers. We look at. He's missed 24 games in 6 years, which is remarkable. 3-point shooter. What are the things that sold you on KCP, and just take us through the decision to bring him on?
KCP is one of those guys who, because he doesn't have these gaudy numbers and kind of a top 10 Sports Center guy every night, maybe flies a little under the radar. But I can tell you that guys around the league in my position know a lot about KCP, and everybody admires him. I know one GM told me after we signed him, we're always looking for a guy like him. You guys got the real one,
Nice, yeah.
And so I think that KCP, he's about all the stuff that we talked about. He just makes guys better. He's economical. He's smart. He's every single possession. Every night. I mean, already even in kind of like open gym scenarios, guys are already blown away. Like, man, he tries to get over every screen, even when we're just running up and down. It's just kind of like one of those guys that knows no other way. Obviously, the shooting piece is something that we were, like looking to improve upon this summer, and I think he'll hopefully add that if history is any indicator. But who he is as a person, man. KCP was one of the biggest free agent signings this summer. You haven't heard him one time talk about, now I can spread my wings, now I can show the league who I am. All he talks about is, I want to show these guys the importance of defense.
Good point.
This is what I do, the importance of showing up every day. And so I think he's going to be a great influence on our team. I think he's going to help us on the court, off the court. And, he's got a hunger and a humility about him that I think, like I said, a lot of guys in my position around the league recognize.
Jeff, could you pull the curtain back a little bit with regard to what the players have been doing this summer? Things have changed in the NBA. When Jeff was playing, I think the season ended and there was a lot of off time, a lot of downtime, a lot of golf, which I'm sure there's still some of that. But how has that changed over time? And could you tell us what our guys have been doing to get ready for training camp?
Yeah, because when Jeff played, I don't think pickleball was a thing, was it?
No. I don't recall that, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. So, I mean, when you say, what are guys, I mean, 16 guys. They've all had their own summers. Obviously, Goga went back to try to qualify for the Olympics with his national team. They didn't make it. Franz and Mo had their German national team experience, had a great run, in the Olympics. And a lot of our other guys have, a lot of our young guys have been here for the predominance of the summer, and some guys have been bopping around in and out. Our coaches and performance staff have done a great job of just sending guys out. As a matter of fact, I met with our player development crew yesterday, and they've quantified everything. They measure everything, how many visits we've taken, what we worked on in those visits, and we're trying to get to a place where everything is measured. The players understand what their off-season goals are, both for a team fit and individually, and so we're not wasting time over the summers. So, like you said, summers have changed. Like we've tried to get as efficient as we can, but with that, the foundation of all of that is relationships. The players have to feel, whether they're here or at home or in another place, even working with a third-party trainer, that they're attached to the team, that we got them. And so our guys have done a great job of attaching to whatever workout they're doing and making it make sense for how it helps us win this season. Everything is done what helps us win this season. And so so it's a big question because it entails like 16 different guys, but I know that our guys have worked really hard, and I know I can say that with credibility, David, because our fans have seen it carry over the last couple seasons. That doesn't the improvements that we've had don't come without a lot of hard work.
And the importance of those off seasons are really getting more and more significant, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's the work, and it's also, honestly, in this age of social media and the incredible level of scrutiny and intensity that these young guys are going through, they need to chill a little bit too. They need to get away and not think about the Magic. Be with their families, be with their buddies, and catch their breath, because once I say, like, we take our inhale, about now, and basically you exhale at the end of the season, and it's a lot, it's a lot that comes at them, and so these summers are important in a lot of ways, and a lot of our guys, their bodies are still growing, and changing, and even to the point where, one of the guys that has been around a lot this summer is Jonathan, and Jonathan, I think our fans will see, he's added a lot of weight, and it's partially the work that he's done, and the guy's as hard a worker as there is, but he's growing up, and it takes time. That's kind of like hearkening back to like the earlier part of the discussion, it doesn't happen like that, so we have to, ride that timeline with them and understand, the curve that they're on, when you talk about like seeing years ahead.
Jeff, it's interesting because, kind of going back to when I played, a lot of the players would begin in September and start getting back into the Central Florida area, and we'd find gyms to play pickup games and things like that. What you read about now is the players will congregate. Somebody will set something up, a player, and they will congregate and have a weekend or a week where they'll all be together, go to dinner and things. Are we seeing anything like that with this young group, and who would be kind of leading that for us?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of that. These guys stay so attached. Obviously, you didn't have Instagram, I don't think, when you played, if I remember right.
No pickleball, no Instagram.
No pickleball, no Instagram. I don't know how you did it.
We didn't even actually have cell phones, so I know that really dates me. But
I would argue he doesn't have a cell phone still if he's got to text.
Or he doesn't know how to use it
that way.
Our guys stay attached, man. I think there are obviously a lot of ways you can stay attached these days. Our guys are, by NBA standards, I think, a particularly tight-knit group. And so, yeah, they did do a lot of that, on their own. They also do a lot of their own stuff, So, P'll go to Seattle, and he's got his guys he wants to work with. And I think it's important that our guys recognize, like, man, this is a guy that played, USA basketball, this last season. Season before was his draft summer. He hasn't had a summer with his family in a couple years. You think about everything this guy's been through. So he goes back to Seattle. He gets his work in. Man, we're sending guys out. We're attaching to the guys that he's working with. And I think it's important that those guys, know that even that we want them to have that time. We want them to have it, but also they have that awareness of how they impact the rest of the team. And so, when you talk about like who's setting things up, I think a lot of our young guys are starting to step up and grow into that. Franz and P, I think, are really feeling, where this is going and starting to pick up some of the onus of that, but I think they all had great summers, in their own respects, and a lot of those times were together, on their own, kind of like under their own instigation. So I love that they do that, and they really care about each other. It's a very, tight-knit group. And the other thing, Jeff, obviously, is like we have this facility now. So you talk about like the home away from home, man, and our young guys, Anthony, Jet, Caleb, they lived in here. They put so much work in, and they really. The thing I love about our guys is they just buy in. They want to come into the league the right way. I always say, like, you are in this league, man. You look at like careers of players. You are how you come into the league more often than not. If you come in the right way and you learn what matters and what people are evaluating from you, it generally puts you in a good place for the rest of your career. And I think our guys are really like getting an understanding of that, and it just goes so far. It allows them to be coached. It allows them to understand the big picture, understand like what the next step is, and those things are so important to young players. So I think like they all had different summers, and they all need to have different summers because they're all at different stages of their careers, and but I think collectively they always stay attached and keep each other up on what's going on, and so kind of excited to bring that back and see them all start to filter in now is a really exciting time of year, and they all get to be together for the first time.
Jeff, it's interesting you say that about young players. I was in Detroit when KCP was, I think it was year 2 through 4 in his career, and I wanted to ask you about Corey Joseph as well. Both those guys, it seems like, identified things that they were good at, got really good at it, and it's been able to prolong their careers. What great examples are they for the young core that we have here, just as far as staying power in the league?
I mean, I was with Corey in Toronto, and you want to talk about just a spectacular person, man. Corey has like that great mix of kind of like that Ontario, very kind of like rule following, like organized, like way about him that I'm familiar with living in Toronto, which is, great city. And he's also got his island background. And he's always got a smile on his face. He's a very like lighthearted guy, and the experiences that he's had, and it's very interesting. I'm sure you guys will talk to him at some point. And one of the things he'll tell you is his last stop in Golden State. This is a guy who's in his 30s now, gets to Golden State and has an eye-opening experience with how hard Steph Curry works.
Wow.
And it really, and when I talked to him this summer, before we kind of brought him up here and started like getting a look at him and met with him just to see where he is and everything, he talked about that and how it kind of like recalibrated him, and it shows. I mean, it was amazing, man. When he came up in July, he was in game shape. I'm like, dude, you're in better shape now than you were in Toronto. Wow. So, but I say that as like the starting point. But the beauty of Corey is, Corey knows when to let the young guys lead. I know that our team is in good hands with our vet guys because they're not trying to impress the coach by being the loudest guy in the room or act differently when there's a coach around or something, or one of us around. They're just authentic guys. They're good guys. They understand what it takes to win. And at this point in their careers, they just want to help these young guys. And they'll do that. They'll do that by sometimes just following, And I think that's wisdom. That's smart. So Corey's just a great guy, and Corey can still play. And I'm really excited that he's going to kind of be in our locker room, be around our guys. I think he's going to be a great influence on them.
You mentioned Jet and Anthony Black. I think when you look back at what Anthony was able to do last year, getting thrust into starters' minutes at times and contributing the way he did, you mentioned they've been in the gym the entire summer, which is great. You've got competition at every position. It's such a deep team. What are you telling Anthony and Jet, and what are you expecting with those two as they try to carve out minutes?
I think that these are talks that Coach Mose is having with them daily, and I think this all folds into like the same conversation about just understanding your progression. Sorry guys, don't try to get too much too soon, and that's one of the hardest things for a young guy to recognize. And so, when Anthony got thrown into the fire last year, I thought he acquitted himself well, but this gets back to like who you are and the character and the ability to understand, the ability to buy in, the ability to be coached. Both of those guys, are tremendous talents, tremendous kids, and man, they had really good summers. They worked their tails off this summer. They put so much time in every day. And I look at them, and their bodies are starting to change. But to your earlier question, Jeff, you think about like Jonathan, is I say starting to grow into his body now. He's 26, 27. I mean, like, these guys are 20, you know. P's 21, you know. So it's like, what are they going to look like in a few years? You know, that's what we have to keep asking ourselves. And in the meantime, you know, as you say, like, well, here's like the point off in the horizon that I'm looking at. Okay, like, what do we have to do every step of the way so that when they get to this point, they're the best they can be? And for them to understand that that's part of this process, you know, takes a lot of work from our staff, and it takes the right player to be able to get that. So it's a big part of, like, when we try to bring guys in here, even throughout the draft process, that, you know, can they internalize, you know, that timetable? And it's not easy. It's not easy. Like, you know, you get in the season and guys want to play and they want to show who they are. But, you know, ultimately, like, you know, we just, like, is this helping the team? Is this helping the team? And, you know, our guys, I think we're the right people. They understand that that's the question that they need to answer for us and for any team in this league. So, yeah, I think those guys both had great summers. I think, you know, they're both really talented. What that means this year, you know, we'll see. It's like you said, Dante, we are very deep. We have depth at every position, you know, and coach is going to be able to look down that bench and have a lot of arrows in his quiver and a lot of options and a lot of different answers for different questions that might be thrown at him in different games and matchups and circumstances, and, you know, what injuries are going to hit. That's one area where I feel, you know, good about our roster. But that said, you know, it as I said earlier, it comes with that kind of, like, duality of, you know, we want to win now, we want to win a championship, but our pathway to doing that is to make sure that we're developing our young players properly.
You mentioned Paolo and Franz, how young they are. Franz just turned 23, I think. You said Paolo 21. The future for those two guys. What makes you confident, knowing them and what they're all about as human beings, that they're going to reach a very, very high potential at the end of their arc?
I feel like those guys are more mature than I am. and I'm not talking about when I was their age. I mean, they're incredible, man. Like, the level of maturity and the willingness to, like, put themselves in difficult situations and get uncomfortable and work and sacrifice. It's just, you just don't see it very often in guys that age, you know, any walk of life. And so for them to be able to do that, you know, honestly, that's what we need to bet on. That's the sort of stuff that if the Magic are going to win a championship, that's the sort of stuff we need to bet on, you know. And they're not the only guys, but you ask about those guys specifically, you know, they're extremely smart, extremely competitive, and even as they grow through their own process of no one's immune from wanting to show who you are and kind of blow up and be that guy, you know. But even as they go through this at the very earliest stage, I mean, they're not even in their pre-primes yet, you know. Even as they go through at the very earliest stages, you already see this awareness of, is that helping the team win? And, you know, ultimately, you know, you see a lot of great players in this league kind of get to the middle part of their careers before that, you know, switch flips. And you can already see it flipping with them, you know, at ages, like, you know, 21 and 22, 23, I think, and Paolo will be 22 in November. But my point is, like, I think the way that our guys look at kind of, you know, the stages of a career, you know, your pre-prime is almost like 23 to 25, 26, and they haven't even hit that part of their career yet. You know, so for them to be doing what they're doing, not just, you know, putting up numbers and kind of, like, you know, garnering all these accolades, but to understand, like, what it takes to win and how they lift up their teammates, and that it's no good if you're not taking everybody with you. To have that awareness, man, that's unique.
Last thing, Jeff, and I want to get your thoughts. Jeff talks about it all the time, and he may want to weigh in too, but getting a taste of the playoffs. These young guys getting a taste, right? And that's, we've heard from all of them, seemingly through social media sites, which Jeff is not on, but they're saying how much that has fueled them and how much that has motivated them the entire summer. Paolo
I'm not either.
no, a lot of people are. You're smart.
Two Jeffs. It
You're
might
smart
be the
to
name.
stay off. It might be the name.
It's a Jeff thing.
But what that can do for a guy like Paolo, obviously for everybody, but for a guy like Paolo, what do you think that did making the playoffs? I know Coach Mosley will say, when I'm in January and I'm talking about the playoffs are like this, now they get it. They've seen it. They understand how important the games are. What does that do to a guy like Paolo getting that taste?
Yeah. Honestly, Dante, with this particular question, I just want to expand that because it's not just P, it's the whole team.
Sure.
And
Yep.
and I feel like, walking through that locker room after Game 7, I mean, it was like a wrecking ball had just come through there, man. Tears in eyes. No one wanted to talk. You could tell right then and there, okay, game on. You could just see it right there. And I think that's carried through the whole summer. I think that the only way to gain that kind of, those battle scars is to go through it, and especially the nature of the way we went through it, to get to the 7th game, to get a big lead, and then to lose a close game. I think that grows people up. It grows up players, and how does it impact them? We'll see. We'll see. I know it's in them, and I know that there's still a lot for them to process, and so they haven't been through. Okay, now we're going to play. After we've been through that experience, it's not like that happened 2 or 3 or 4 times. It just happened once. So the first time, you never know. So we'll see how they internalize that, how that hits them immediately. But it's in there, and it will come out at some point.
I love that. That's great. I think that fires us all up, and I think we can't wait, right? Let's get this.
And Jeff was on a team that
Yeah.
made the playoffs and got knocked out, upset in the first round by Indiana, and then the next season that team made it to the NBA Finals. So it does happen. It has happened. It's happened here.
Well, I was a big part of that, so that's
I know you
probably
were.
why.
That's why I brought it up.
I was injured, and so when I came back, it just changed everything.
But your contributions in the locker room were exceptional.
No, I know we want to wrap it up, but if I may, just so Jeff, when I go around town, people stop me all the time. What people around town, and you guys have probably heard this, they love this team, and you've talked about how close they are.
Yeah.
It's so apparent. It's so obvious to fans the way they cheer for one another and everything. And I always laugh, and I tell them, it's like, yeah, it is very unusual at our level because I've been there, and I know every one of those guys. They think they should be on the floor, and I tell them, and you can comment. I believe that what you've talked about, the philosophy of this organization, and it comes from the top, and that's you, Jeff Weltman, that this belief that, we're going to do everything we can if you'll just stay with us to make sure you're the best player you can be. I think that's a big part of what you've created here and why this team is so close. And to the playoff question, I think that because of that closeness, and experiencing that together, it's not just one guy felt, anything. It's all of them together. It's why I get excited about this crew.
Well, I first of all, I appreciate that. I want to say I'm not at the top, but I want to say that MO comes from the DeVosses. And from a basketball operations, obviously, but you're down,
absolutely right.
And then to Alex, and then listen, I was recruited here,
yeah,
and I felt it, and so I do think it's a part of our ethos. It's hope, the magic way. That's what we want to establish, the magic way. When you come here, you're part of something bigger than yourself, and if you're not looking for that, don't come. That said, man, I so appreciate all of that, Jeff. But I'll just finish with this, man. Everything that you said, it's just because we got the right dudes, man. It's just because we got the right dudes. They are just such good people. And I can't tell you how deeply we try to get to know them through the draft process, and the amount of homework that we do, even when we're looking at free agency. It's so important we just can't do what we're doing without that component, So I'm really glad that you bring that up, and kind of maybe that's a great way to tie it all together at the end. I really appreciate that. But it's really at the end of the day, we everybody in this building, man, they work their butt off, and they work the right way. And I always say the right information has to find the right person with no ego. But all of that, it doesn't mean anything without the character and who those players are as people. And that's what we're about.
Well, I love that. It's a great way to wrap it up. I think that's what we all see. That's what gets fans so excited about this group that you've put together here, and we can't wait to get started. That'll do it for this edition of Magic Pod Squad with Jeff Weltman.